Mr. Zembrowski for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce some folks from Rockland County that have joined us today. I do so on behalf of my colleagues Alan Jaffe and James Skoufis, who have a couple of constituents as well in the group. These are groups of Indian Americans who have come up as we're about to, a little bit later in the session, to do Indian American Heritage Month in the state of New York, and they're a vibrant and energetic group that contribute greatly to the Rockland County community. On any given weekend or weeknight throughout the course of the year, there's a host of events, from children's events to senior citizen events to things celebrating their holidays. And one of the great things I think that we all cherish as elected officials is we get to know our entire communities and the great diversity that we have in the state of New York and in Rockland County. And whether it's some of my favorite are the spring festivals, the Holy Festival, and all the great things that we learn from our Indian American friends, and they truly, not only do we cherish them, but they contribute to the great diversity of our county, as I said. So if I could mention a few of the organizations that they represent. First, let me say that they're sort of led up here by the first female county legislator, Indian county legislator elected in the state of New York, and that's Annie Paul. She still serves in our Rockland County legislature, and she joins us each and every year and is doing great work in the Rockland County legislature. And eventually she'll have to run down the thruway because I understand they have a meeting tonight. But we also have members of the India Cultural Society of Rockland, the Jivan Jyoti Senior Citizen Association of Rockland, the Hudson Valley Malayali Association, the MLLA News, the Federation of Kerala Association of North America, and the Indian Nurses Association of New York. We're so thankful that they could join us here today and celebrate as the Senate and the Assembly both do a resolution. And if you could welcome to the chambers, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of myself, my colleagues that I mentioned, in the entire chambers. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly on behalf of Mr. Zembrowski, Ms. Jaffe, Mr. Skoufis, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome this extraordinary group of Indian Americans here to the New York State Assembly. We extend to you the privileges of the floor. We hope that this trip has been beneficial and that you will continue to support both the well-being of your community and the state at large. Thank you so very much for being with us. Mr. Santa Barbara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to interrupt the proceedings for the purposes of an introduction. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by two school superintendents from my district. We have joining us Larry Spring from the Schenectady City School District and Thomas Perillo from the Greater Amsterdam School District in Montgomery County. I'm very proud to call both of them great partners in public education. They are leading the way in providing children of all backgrounds with a high-quality education in all of our communities. Larry Spring is entering his 5th year as Schenectady Superintendent, and Thomas Perillo will be retiring this year after 40 years of service in the field of education. They are both working in our communities to ensure a better future for our children and are deeply in tune with the issues our communities are facing. They are joined today by Stephanie Dillon, Communications Specialist for the Greater Amsterdam School District. I'm very proud to have all of them here with us today, Mr. Speaker. If you could extend to them the cordialities of the House and welcome them to the chamber. Thank you.
Certainly, on behalf of Mr. Santa Barbara, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome you here, gentlemen, to the New York State Assembly, the People's House. We commend you on your efforts to ensure that our children get the excellent education that they deserve. We hope that you will continue those efforts even as you may be retiring, sir. We want to make sure that you stay involved in the process. We need that experience. Thank you so very much. Continue your good work. Ms. Hunter. Mr. Dendecker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to interrupt the proceedings for the purposes of an introduction. We are joined today by the Lexington School for the Deaf, which is a annual trek that these young men and women make every year up to Albany from our district in Jackson Heights to play in a basketball game against state legislators men and women and Democrats and Republicans from both houses. It's the one time that we all get together with one goal, to beat those young men and women in basketball. And last year, I'm proud to say we were successful. We got the trophy, and it's been sitting in my office. I put it up in the window so as they walk by, they can see the trophy as they go to school. But yesterday, Mr. Speaker, while we were up here in Albany, there was a robbery from my office. Somebody broke into my office, unauthorized, and stole the trophy. We have the state troopers investigating this now. We will bring the appropriate people to the fullest extent of the basketball game tonight and hold them accountable for taking that trophy back without permission. I ask, though, Mr. Speaker, that we take a moment in seriousness to welcome the men and women of Lexington School for the Deaf and congratulate them once again for coming up here and being such great athletes and scholars and educators and students to come up here and teach us the importance of education and how our funding dollars make the lives of boys and girls and young men and women better. And I ask that you please give them all the cordialities of the House. I invite all the members to join us this evening, tonight at the annual Lexington School for the Deaf basketball game against the legislators. And our great coach, I would just say, Mr. Aubrey, our speaker today, does a fantastic job organizing us all in our injured old bodies to be able to even make it onto the court to begin off with. So, Mr. Speaker, again, if you'll please give them the cordialities of the House, I would appreciate it.
Certainly, on behalf of Mr. Dendecker, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome the Lexington School for the Deaf here to the New York State Assembly. It has been an occurrence that we've had for many, many years. We've always enjoyed the trips that you come here and you demonstrate your intelligence, your athleticism, and your dedication to your school. We will honor you tonight because we are unpracticed, we're older, and we're fatter, and that should make it an easier winter for you. Thank you so very much for coming, and we will see you later this evening. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. If we could go to page 3 of the main calendar and begin with Assembly Resolution 1467 by Mr. McGee at the request of Mr. McGee.
Clerk will read.
Resolution number 1467, rules at the request of Mr. McGee. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim June 2016 as Dairy Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1468, rules at the request of Mr. Zabrowski. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim August 2016 as Indian American Heritage Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1469, rules at the request of Mrs. Gunther. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim September 24th, 2016 as Family, Health, and Fitness Day in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1470, rules at the request of Mr. Murray. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim October 12th, 2016 as Emergency Nurses Day and October 9th through the 15th, 2016 as Emergency Nurses Week in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1471, rules at the request of Mr. McDonald. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim October 13th, 2016 as Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1472, rules at the request of Mrs. Dupree. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim December 4th, 2016 as Pallister-Killian Syndrome Day in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1473, rules at the request of Mr. Kearns. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim January 2016 as Carbon Monoxide Poisoning Awareness Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If we could begin with two bills that I'm going to give you off the debate list. We're going to start with calendar number 435, which is on page 38 of the main calendar by Ms. Nolan. And we're going to follow that with calendar number 821 on page 72 by Ms. Barrett.
Clerk will read.
Senate 6503, calendar number 435, Senator Marcelino, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect on the 90th day.
Clerk will record the vote. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind folks that this is our first vote of the day, so members should cast their vote, and those who can hear either my or your voice ought to make their way to the chambers to cast their first vote of the day.
First vote of the day, members, please come to the chamber and vote. If you are in your seats, please vote now. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 121, noes 0.
The bill is passed.
Assembly 9509, Calendar 821, Ms. Barrett, an act to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 123, noes 0.
The bill is passed. Mr. Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could ask members of the Ways and Means Committee to move to the Speaker's Conference Room. Mr. Farrell is awaiting members of the Ways and Means Committee in the Speaker's Conference Room.
Ways and Means Speakers Conference Room. Yes.
Why don't you leave your vote? Ask the ranker if you could leave your vote. Oh, right.
Mr. Morelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We could go to page 15 of the main calendar, calendar number 50, Ms. Jaffe.
Clerk will read.
Assembly 1142A, calendar number 50, Ms. Jaffe, an act to amend the labor law.
An explanation is requested. Ms. Jaffe.
Certainly, Mr. Speaker. This is an act that amends the labor law in relation to discrimination based on an employee's or the employee's dependent's reproductive health care decision-making. It actually prohibits employers from discriminating against employees based on those private decisions. And it prohibits the discrimination towards the employer for these health care decisions that they make. And it also prohibits the employer from accessing an employee's personal information regarding their reproductive health decisions, including, but not limited to, the decision to use or access a particular drug, a device, medical services, without the employee's prior informed affirmative written consent. It also prohibits discrimination or retaliatory action against an employee on the basis of the employee's decision-making with healthcare decisions, but it's not limited to the decision to use or access a particular drug or device. In addition, the employer may not require an employee to sign a waiver or document which would deny the employee the right to make their own reproductive health care decisions. And it provides additional protections for the employee, which would require that the employer provide a handbook that would include a notice of their rights and remedies under this section.
Ms. Corwin. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the sponsor yield? Do you yield?
Certainly.
She yields. Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that. Ellen, you were talking about how this would prohibit discrimination based on employer dependence health decision-making. Don't we have federal HIPAA laws that protect against that?
Well, there is a law. However, it only applies to businesses with more than 15 employees. So then you have those small businesses that have less than 15 employees, which this will assist in this legislation.
And this would only apply to those businesses that offer reproductive health decisions, or this has to do with anything?
And it's only private decision-making by the employee.
Okay, fine, thank you. And my understanding is the way it works in the real world is an employer will receive information from the health insurance carrier in terms of utilization of services, or else perhaps the employer could find out about a person's health decisions or their choices as far as reproductive health through other employees or social media, more accidental, unintended ways. And so this bill is intended to protect against any kind of discrimination.
Absolutely.
In those cases.
Yes.
Okay, so between HIPAA and this bill, you'd be pretty much making sure that no one could do anything based on what your decision is for your reproductive rights.
Personal decision-making,
Okay.
yes.
This bill has, over the years, been affectionately referred to as the Hobby Lobby bill. I believe because at the time that this bill was written, there was a Supreme Court case going through the U.S. Supreme Court deciding whether or not the company Hobby Lobby was required to provide certain reproductive health services. What is the impact of this bill on the result of that case? Because the case was ruled in favor of Hobby Lobby.
Well, this bill was amended that doesn't require the insurance coverage within the context of this bill. So
I'm sorry, say that again?
This bill was amended to make clear that it does not require insurance coverage. So it's all about, ensuring that employees do not suffer adverse employment consequences based on their own personal reproductive health care decisions.
Okay, so again, so this bill does not require an employer to provide reproductive health services
correct.
to their employees. It says that if they have those reproductive health choices, that the employer cannot take any action or discriminate against them.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as the bill states that you create a, let me get my language down here, a cause of action. The elements of that, is that similar to other cause of actions? For example, discrimination in the workplace based on gender or age? Is it following the same format?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does do that.
So basically, you could say that you can't discriminate against an employee based on their gender, based on their age, based on their reproductive or any of their health choices.
Personal reproductive decisions.
Personal health choices.
Or their dependents.
Right. And if you do, the same type of thing is going to happen to you regardless of whether it's age, gender, or health decisions.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that. That clarifies quite a bit. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Goodell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the sponsor yield?
Do you yield, Ms. Jaffe?
Certainly.
She yields.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jaffe. As you know, there are some religions that feel very strongly about certain reproductive aspects, if you will. Feel very strongly against contraceptives or birth control, out of wedlock births, things of that nature. I see that your bill expressly prohibits an employer requiring an employee to sign a waiver relating to any reproductive health care decision, correct?
That's correct.
So does that mean that this bill outlaws the Catholic Church requiring their priests to sign a vow of celibacy?
Yes, this is a personal decision, and you do not have to sign that waiver.
As you know, we have a number of parochial schools around the state. Many people send their kids to parochial schools because they're looking forward to getting, good biblical teachings. Obviously, the parochial school not only teaches good biblical standards and things of that nature, but also expect its staff to display those standards. So it's not unusual that if a single individual, unmarried individual in a Catholic parochial school, for example, becomes pregnant, it creates a real problem for that Catholic school because they're teaching abstinence at the same time that the teacher is pregnant out of wedlock. Does this bill then make it illegal for a parochial school to fire an employee who violates the religious precepts of that school and becomes pregnant while single?
Yes, that's true. It makes it illegal unless if they don't, particularly if they don't qualify under the ministerial definition in terms of.
And of course, that interference with their religious precepts applies not just to women that work for the parochial school, it would apply to men as well.
It only applies to those who were that work under the ministerial definition.
So to be clear, there is no religious exemption contained in this language.
For the teachers, no.
For the teachers, principals,
The teachers
nuns,
you cannot.
priests,
No,
rabbis, no religious exemption at all. Am I correct?
that's not what I said. I said that there are ministerial exemptions.
And where in the language is the ministerial exception? Because I couldn't find it.
That is included in the federal law.
Well, I know
within
it's
the
federal
context of the
constitutional
federal-
law. My question is there any language in this legislation
I don't think,
that exempts rabbis, priests, nuns,
does it say
religious
in here?
instructors, or anyone of that nature from its scope?
It's not required to be in this legislation. It is within the context of the federal law.
So your view is even though this language doesn't exempt it, if this bill were applied, it would be unconstitutional?
Only if it were applied, only if it were applied within the ministerial context.
Wouldn't
Not
it be
if-
better as
Not
a
the
matter?
teachers in the classroom. They cannot discriminate against them.
Wouldn't it be better as a matter of statutory construction that we not knowingly pass bills we believe are unconstitutional, but instead draft the bills so that they are constitutional?
This is not unconstitutional.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. On the bill,
On the bill.
you know, the Supreme Court has made it clear that religious freedom applies in the United States. It's part of our Bill of Rights, as we all know. It's actually kind of at the beginning of the Bill of Rights, right? We should not knowingly pass a bill that we know is unconstitutional if it's applied the way it's written. It seems like kind of a fundamental principle. Now, I know we're ending a second-year term, and it's now been almost 2 years since each of us signed a constitutional oath of office, you know, the one where we said that we pledged to uphold the Constitution of the state of New York and the Constitution of the United States. And that pledge is so serious that if we didn't sign that pledge within 30 days after taking office, we'd lose office. So here we have a bill that makes it illegal for the Catholic Church to require its priests to take a vow of celibacy. Really? Or makes it illegal for the very people who are teaching celibacy to remain celibate or abstinence? And we knowingly know that this language has no exception for rabbis or priests or nuns or anybody, even though it covers areas where we know as a legislative body they have very, very strong religious views. Since this bill, as written, is a clear affront to the constitutional freedom of religion, I'm going to vote against it, and I would recommend that the sponsor add the language necessary to make it constitutional before we vote on it again. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Ms. Jaffe to explain her vote.
Yes, thank you. This legislation would prohibit any employer from taking adverse employment action against an employee because of the employee or the dependent's reproductive health decisions, such as the decision to use or access a particular drug or device or a medical service. And, you know, current law and federal law, state and federal law, protects individuals against employment discrimination on the basis of sex and pregnancy, but there are loopholes that unfortunately still exist. The Federal Pregnancy Discrimination Act only applies to employers of 15 or more, leaving many employees unprotected from discrimination. And this legislation will strengthen and expand the state law to ensure that an employer cannot retaliate against any employee because of their personal decisions related to pregnancy or family planning or other reproductive health choices. And this boss bill really is about fairness. It makes clear that New York State will protect workers' abilities to make those reproductive health care decisions without the fear of getting fired or any repercussions. This is also consistent with the constitutional requirements that we noted earlier regarding the ministerial opportunities to be exempted from these decisions. But the teachers in the classroom or those within their the employees that work in these small businesses, they are given the right to make these personal decisions. And this is about fairness. It's about women and families having the available ability to have access to health care services. It improves their health and well-being. And it also corrects those loopholes. And we in New York State have a long history of protecting individuals from discrimination in the workplace, decisions about pregnancy, and that's what this is about. And I urge my colleagues, I'll be voting in the affirmative, and I urge my colleagues to vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Ms. Jaffe in the affirmative.